What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Big Fight Field channel where we speak the truth, we're honest, and we give our takes on professional wrestling. It is Sunday, February 16th, 2025, and this is your AEW Grand Slam and NXT Vengeance Day reviews. You guys are getting two reviews in one podcast here today. Didn't watch NXT live last night. Caught up with a little bit last night, but most of it this morning. I thought it was a decent show. There were some really good matches. There were some matches that I didn't like that much. But overall, most of the matches were good. I shouldn't say matches that I didn't like, because overall, the in-ring quality of this show was actually pretty good. Some of the outcomes of the matches I didn't like. But overall, it was a decent show. I've seen better NXT shows under this new regime, and I've seen worse. So this wasn't bad by any means. It was a decent show. Grand Slam was a really good show. There was quite a few finishes that I did not like on this show, which we'll get to. Um, a finish that a lot of people didn't like. I was fine with it. That was obviously in the Toni Storm match. That was probably the biggest thing that happened in both shows yesterday was Toni Storm versus Mariah May. We're going to talk about that a lot. But there is some very questionable stuff on this show, but there is not a bad match. All the matches were good. The crowd was awesome. The best moment on the show, though, shout out to Adam Copeland and his entrance, Metalingus. On this day, I see clearly. The crowd was going insane for that song. They were singing half the lyrics to it, and you could tell how much that moment meant to Cope. That was awesome. So we're gonna get into it all. I thank you guys so much for joining me. It's been a week, man. So there was no AEW review on Wednesday because I was sick. Didn't really miss much though. It was an alright show. But we'll be back on Wednesday with AEW here on the channel. And we'll have your normal week here on the Big Fight Field channel. We'll have Raw tomorrow night. We'll have AEW on Wednesday. We'll have SmackDown on Friday. And we'll call it a week. But that is next week coming up. And if you haven't already, be sure to go ahead and check out the SmackDown podcast review. I think we're up over 230 views on that podcast, so I'll leave it up in the last 20 seconds if you guys want to go check it out. But of course, don't do that until you've watched the entirety of this podcast, this double review podcast here on the Big Fight Field channel. So, okay. Let's go ahead. Let's review Grand Slam first. Alright, Grand Slam will be the show we review first. That's obviously the bigger show of the two. So despite everything that happened leading up to the show, which was very little promotion on TV of the show, I said in my tweet last night, very little build. I definitely take that back. It was very little promoting of the show until like about 2-3 weeks until the show actually took place. So very little promoting. Everything going on with it supposed to be a stadium show, and the bad time slot. This show was supposed to come on at 10:30 last night, and they came on TNT 23 minutes late. This show started at 10:53 last night, but it went by so fast. Like, yes, the show started really late. It started at 10:53 Eastern Time, but this show flew by. And that's what you want when you're watching a wrestling show, because you're having a good time. So, the first match we had Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay against Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher. So, Kyle Fletcher got booed in his own hometown. Ospreay and Omega were extremely over. So we'll start here. Stereotypical. Omega's going for the clap with the crowd, and he goes. So Ospreay joins in with him, and Omega dives onto Fletcher, and Ospreay dives onto Takeshita on the outside. Don Callis is losing his mind, and the camera goes to Will Ospreay, and Ospreay goes to inject that in my veins, bruv. So that will be a meme for sure. We are back from commercial break a little bit, and we have Ospreay doing a phenomenal forearm to Takeshita. Super kick by Kyle Fletcher. Kenny Omega tries to come in with a V-trigger, but he misses. Fletcher tries to hit a super kick, but he misses. Kenny Omega hits a Snapdragon. Takeshita goes for the Exploder Suplex, and he connects. So it's Takeshita and Ospreay, and Takeshita gets his head stuck from Ospreay. Ospreay hits a super kick onto Konosuke Takeshita. Fletcher with a elbow, and then Ospreay does a standing Spanish fly. Beautiful stuff. Crowd is chanting, "This is awesome." They're standing up. They're really into this match. So it's Ospreay and Fletcher in the ring at this point. And I'm moving a little bit forward in the match. Ospreay goes for a Spanish fly, but he stands and tries to go for the Styles Clash. Fletcher counters it and tries to go for his own Styles Clash, but Ospreay sits up and hits a draping DDT onto Kyle Fletcher. Crowd once again standing up, going wild for Will Ospreay. Ospreay then gets ready for the Os Cutter, and Fletcher catches him and counters it, and then Ospreay hits a DDT once again. Ospreay boots Takeshita to the outside, and then he goes for the hidden blade, but Don Callis, of all people, grabbed Will Ospreay's foot, and Kyle Fletcher does the corner kick to Will Ospreay. So Don Callis, of course, getting tons of heat in Australia. After grabbing the foot, they chanted, "Fuck you, Callis." And then Takeshita, this was impressive. A double German suplex to Toni Storm and not Toni Storm, Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega. Crowd was amazed by that. Fletcher gets the tag with Kenny Omega, but Takeshita goes to the top rope, and they do a spot where Omega counters it into a Hurricane Rana, and Ospreay hits a moonsault on the outside to Kyle Fletcher. Perfectly executed. But the best part of this match was the finish. So Omega and Takeshita are on the top rope, and Omega moves out of the way, slams Takeshita's head onto the turnbuckle. Takeshita, he stands up, head on turnbuckle. Ospreay jumps over Konosuke Takeshita on the outside, and jumps onto Kyle Fletcher, like jumps off his back and hits a crossbody onto Kyle Fletcher. That was awesome. I'm watching it again here. So it was a crossbody or like a rolling set time off to Keshka onto Kyle Fletcher on the outside. That was sick. That was absolutely sick. And then in the ring, Omega picks up Takeshita for the one-winged angel, and Ospreay's on the top rope, and we get a hidden blade into a one-winged angel combination, and Omega and Ospreay win this match. That was amazing. That match was amazing. No surprises there. Absolutely the best match on the show. All four guys looked great. And, Brisbane ate it up. As you know, as we knew they were going to. And it was an amazing match. So we get backstage later on in the show. And they're hyping up their win, Kenny and Will. But they're still not satisfied because Kenny says for over a year, he's had to hear how Konosuke Takeshita has pinned Kenny Omega twice in a week. That was nearly 2 years ago. And he says, I'm ready to put that to rest. And he says, people say that the International Championship is the pinnacle of AEW. I think it's time for Takeshita to really challenge himself. Is he the pinnacle of AEW? He challenges Takeshita to put that International Championship on the line at Revolution. And Ospreay then counters with a promo for Kyle Fletcher. He says, you still think you're the protostar? You still think you're the best? I want to see if you're the best. I want to test you one more time. He says, leave the family out of it. They're going to be locked. What about if it's me and you at Revolution inside a steel cage? So we could be getting the blow-off of this Will Ospreay-Kyle Fletcher feud at Revolution in a steel cage match. That's 100% a blow-off to their feud. So that should be awesome. So those two matches right there on the pay-per-view, it instantly makes the Revolution pay-per-view that much more must-see. So overall, I thought this stuff was amazing. We had Harley Cameron challenge Mercedes Moné for the TBS Championship. Crowd was really into Harley. She is over like Rover in Australia, and that's where she's from. She's from Melbourne, Australia. Gold Coast, Australia. And Mercedes comes out with her 4 titles. She's getting heavily booed. So everything Mercedes did in this match, she got booed. So we'll start here. Mercedes is hung up on the second rope. Harley gives her a kick to the back of the head. She's digging her nails into the eyes of Mercedes Moné, posing to the camera, and she goes underneath the ring. She grabs the Monet Muppet. The crowd goes wild. They absolutely love that Muppet. I don't know why. AEW is not selling this on AEW Shop. Like, this is where AEW has the problem with promoting their stuff compared to WWE, because Penta didn't even make his debut, and that same day they were already selling Penta masks on AEW on WWE Shop, and it was one of the most sold merchandises that week. I have no idea why AEW is not marketing this and why they're not putting this on AEW Shop for people to buy. I'm not saying I'm buying it, but I don't know. That's just me. So, Harley is on the second rope. She does the 10 punches to the head while holding the Monet Muppet. Crowd's going crazy. But as she does the 10th punch, Mercedes moves and she hits a double knees to Harley, grabs the Muppet and stomps it on the ground, kicks it in the air, and this crowd hated her for that. They booed her heavily. So now, Mercedes, she's beating her up in the commercial break. She's beating her up for the majority here, and they do this camera. They zoom in on this camera shot with Harley putting the Muppet on the top of the apron, and Harley slowly rises her head over the ring apron. Crowd is going wild for her. They're chanting, "Feel their wrath, feel their wrath." And Harley starts punching Monet with the Muppet, slams her head onto the ring apron, goes to the top rope, does a crossbody, and then after that, she hit a beautiful Canadian Destroyer. So Harley looked really good in this match, which I'll talk about after I talk about the match itself. And then Mercedes kicks out the Destroyer. Mercedes on the top rope looking for double knees. She hits it, and Harley Cameron kicks out at 2. Mercedes has the shock face. She doesn't know how to beat Harley, and Harley comes from behind and rolls her up, and Mercedes kicks out at 2. Harley does another roll up, and she kicks out. Harley whips Mercedes, but then Mercedes whips Harley to the turnbuckle. Harley counters it into another roll up, but Mercedes kicks out. Harley then she avoids double knees from Mercedes Monet. She runs to the opposite side of the ring, and she hits a swinging 619. At least it looked like that's what she was trying for. But then she goes to the top rope for the Swanton. She missed, and Mercedes hit a very sloppy Monet Maker, and she won the match. So that was the match. The first thing I'll say is that match was really good. Very good match. That was absolutely the best that Harley Cameron looked in her short AEW career so far. She was hitting top rope moves. She looked like she belonged in there with Mercedes. She was hitting destroyers. She looked good. She looked very good in that match. The second thing I will say is it's time to put respect on Mercedes Monet's TBS championship reign, because to make a great champion, obviously down the road you're going to face challengers who you are way better than, and they are either average or they are below average in the ring. In this case, Harley Cameron, we could say she's not the most experienced wrestler, and Mercedes had to go in there and carry the match and lead in the match with someone who doesn't have as much experience, like Harley, and Mercedes was great. And what makes a great champion is going in these matches and she elevated Harley Cameron in this match. Now, what I will say next, my third and final thing, you might agree with it, you might disagree with it. Whatever you think, it's totally fine. I think Harley Cameron should have won this match. And listen, man, WWE's missed the boat on it with a lot of guys. But most of the time, when someone is super over and they have a lot of momentum, they strike. And they capitalize on that. With Triple H, at least. Harley, going into this match, had so much momentum. She had the crowd behind her. She was doing incredible work. The video package they played on Wednesday with her rapping with the puppet, that was great. And then the serious promo right after, that was even better. And then the concert, she had all this momentum leading up to the show where I felt like Toni should have probably put the title on Harley Cameron. And they can do a story where Mercedes is pissed. She lost to Harley, who has no experience. She's on a rampage now. Redemption to get back her TBS championship. So, I don't know, man. I might be wrong in it, but I feel like Harley should have won that match. But, regardless, that match was good. Good match. So now it's time for the Brisbane Brawl, Brisbane Street Fight, whatever you want to call it. The highlight of all of this wasn't even the match itself. It was Cope's entrance and getting to the ring. They sang his song. Tony Schiavone was talking about his injury, and he hushed immediately. Probably Nigel heard him talking, heard the crowd singing, and was like, yo, shush. Give the man his moment. So that was incredible. And these international crowds make us American wrestling fans look like poverty. Feel like poverty. So, shout out to Australia for that one. That was awesome. So, the Death Riders are making their entrance, and they get when they get to the ringside area, they get attacked by Cope and Jay White. They're all in the ring, and Cope and Jay White are doing the 10 punches to the head with the crowd counting along. This felt very much like a WWE, like anything goes, no DQ match. They used tables, chairs, and a kendo stick. That was it. They didn't really do much in this match. It very much felt like a WWE no DQ match. So, both White and Cope clothesline Moxley over the top rope. They set Claudio back body drop over the top rope. So now the brawl starts on the outside. You got Cope with Claudio, and you got Jay White with Moxley. Cope and Claudio are brawling in the crowd. So this whole time, they are showing Jay White and Moxley. And I'm like, this is not interesting at all. The more interesting thing, what you should be showing, is what's going on in the fucking crowd with Copeland and Claudio. So Cope, they pan to the crowd, and Cope is standing on top of this balcony, 50 years old, stands on top of there and does a crossbody onto Claudio, and this man lands with his knees straight, just like he did at Double or Nothing against Malachi Black. So he clearly did not learn from his lesson. So, Moxley is at the ringside, and they pan to Cope again, doing the crossbody to Claudio. So Moxley, he then goes to attack Cope, and he comes back to the ring, and the crowd starts chanting, "Moxley is a wanker. Moxley is a wanker." Awesome stuff. Love the international crowds. Moxley is on the top rope, and he gets hit in the face by Cope. Cope is punching him, and there's a table set on the outside too, which was set up by, I believe, Moxley. So, Cope looks like he's about to suplex Moxley, and Marina Shafir comes in and hits a kendo stick onto Cope. Jay White grabs the kendo stick away from Marina Shafir, but Claudio grabs his foot, lifts him up in midair, and gives him an uppercut. And then Claudio just grabs Cope and power bombs him right through the table on the outside. So Cope is laid out, and Jay White just steals the kendo stick from Marina Shafir, and he starts whacking Moxley and Claudio back and forth with this kendo stick. And Jay White, he breaks the kendo stick. Crowd gives this a great reaction. Moxley catches the broken kendo stick, and Claudio just turns him and throws him head first into a steel chair, which looked brutal. So now Cope's back in there, and he looks like he's going to spear Claudio through the table, but Claudio gives him an uppercut, and he looks like he's going to hit the neutralizer. Back body drop by Cope, and Cope spears Claudio through the table. That was awesome. Good spot. What was not awesome was the ending of the match, because Cope then goes to spear Moxley. A Wheeler Yuta came out at this point, and he gets hit with a Blade Runner immediately. And Cope goes to spear Moxley, and he gets hit in the head by the briefcase by Marina Shafir, and he gets hit with a briefcase, a Psycho knee from Wheeler Yuta, the neutralizer, and then right into the Bulldog choke, where he passes out. And again, this Death Rider stuff, it's the same finish for every match. The crowd chants bullshit as Moxley doesn't let go of the chokehold. It's the same finish to every Death Riders match. It doesn't matter who's wrestling. It could be Claudio. It could be Moxley. It could be a tag team match. It's always... It takes 4 people to beat one guy. A couple weeks ago, it took Jon Moxley hitting a paradigm shift with the ref being distracted for Claudio to beat Jeff Jarrett. Um, Now this week, it takes it takes four people to beat Adam Copeland. This finish was not good, and the only way this finish to this match makes sense is if they go to Revolution and Moxley loses the championship to Cope. That's the only way the finish of this match is going to make sense. Because I definitely thought that Cope and Jay White were going to get the win in this match. Probably pinning Claudio or whatever. But that did not happen. They passed Cope out. And it was a fun match. But I didn't like the finish that much. We had Buddy Matthews and Okada for the Continental Championship. Buddy Matthews from Melbourne, Australia. Okada's entrance looked really cool. Got the laser entrance, the lasers around him. They need to keep that entrance for Okada. That looked pretty sick. We need to keep that for sure. So we got grappling in the beginning from Buddy and Okada, and then they both eventually they go face to face when they're both on one knee, and Buddy gives Okada the middle finger, and Okada just decides to bail, and Buddy gets on the microphone. He says, "The past couple of weeks I've been calling you a bitch, but now you're just being a wanker." And Okada gets back in the ring, and he does a collar and elbow of all moves with Buddy. "Yeah, you just got called a wanker. Let me run back in the ring and hit you with a collar and elbow tie-up." So we'll just get to the finish here. The match was fine between them. I've seen better Buddy matches. I've seen better Okada matches. Actually, yeah, we'll get to this point here. Buddy and Okada are on the top rope, and Buddy hits a suplex off the top rope into a jackhammer, and Okada kicks out. Then Buddy hits what they called in WWE Murphy's Law. They called it Matthew's Law. Haven't seen him hit that move in a while. So Buddy was throwing everything at Okada, and Buddy was going to German suplex Okada, and Okada ran to the turnbuckle and then sandwiched the referee, and he sandwiched the referee. Low blow to Buddy from behind. Rainmaker. Okada retained the Continental title. The match was good, I guess. They had a good match. I've just seen better. So, nothing too crazy. The main event on this show was Mariah May defending the Women's Championship against Toni Storm. This had the most build and the most hype going into this show. Crowd was chanting Toni, Toni Storm, Toni, Toni Storm during Mariah's entrance. And Toni comes out. Well, first Luther's in the crowd, and he presents Toni Storm. Toni's old music hits, but then the lights go out, and the timeless Toni Storm comes out. So the bell rings. We get both ladies going face to face, and they start coming with blows. Punches in the middle of the ring. Toni drags Mariah to the corner to start punching her in the face. Toni counters Mariah and hits her with a Des press. Starts punching away. So this match is very personal. Very happy they didn't start this match with a collar and an elbow, because this is personal business right here. So Toni stomping away. Aubrey Edwards has to pull her away, and Mariah comes out with a sling blade. So this point, Toni, I'm going to my notes here. Toni takes Mariah to Suplex City. And I'm watching this and I'm like, Suplex City. And she gave her 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 German suplexes. She goes for a 7th, but Mariah hits a neck breaker onto Toni. And then she goes to the top rope, hits a missile drop kick onto Toni Storm. Luther is fanning Toni with the newspaper that he has. I don't know if that's effective. But then Mariah May hits the hip attack onto Toni Storm, and Toni no-souls it and hits the Mayday, and Mariah May kicked out at 2. So then Toni is standing up. She's got the smeared lipstick. She hits 1 hip attack onto Mariah May. She hits a 2nd hip attack onto Mariah May. She hits a 3rd hip attack onto Mariah May. She then hits a Storm Zero, the pile driver, and Mariah May kicked out at 2. I'm like, I thought for sure that was the finish, because 3 hip attacks, and then the Storm Zero, that should have definitely been the finish of the match. So Mariah, she then hits the Mayday onto Toni, but she doesn't cover her because she picks her up for a 2nd Mayday, and she hits it, and Toni kicks out. So they're hitting their big signatures, they're hitting their big finisher moves, and they are just kicking out of everything they're throwing at each other. So Mariah, she gets pissed at Aubrey. She gets in her face, and she's just sitting there and distraught. She doesn't know how she's going to put away Timeless Toni Storm in this match. Then Mariah puts Toni on the top rope, gives her the kiss to the forehead. Toni catches Mariah, hits her with a powerbomb. She hits a 2nd Storm Zero, but Mariah rolls out to the ring. So she rolls outside, and where am I at here? We're back in the ring, and she goes for another Storm Zero. Mariah hits another Mayday, and she kicked out. And she picked up Toni, and Toni got her in a small package. 1, 2, 3. The crowd erupted in cheer. Toni Storm is a 4-time AEW Women's Champion. So I didn't like the finish to the tag team match. I didn't really like the finish to the Buddy and Okada match. A lot of people didn't like the finish to this match. And I can understand that because these two hit big move after big move after big move, whether it was the hip attacks, it was the Storm Zeros, the Maydays. They were just hitting their signatures and their finishers for half their match. Um, so, if you didn't like the finish, I understand. I thought the finish was fine because this is obviously not the end of their feud. You're not going to end this feud, this story that's been going on for, um, I would say a year and a half now, like 15 months or so, between Toni Storm and Mariah May. You're not going to end this story with a small package. This is going to end in a big blow-off match at Revolution. I don't know what stipulation it's going to be. It could be last woman standing. It could be Iron Woman match. I have no idea. I don't know. But I don't think this is the end. And there's a reason that AEW did a small package roll up as the finish. It's because this ain't the end of this feud. So, I thought the match was good. I thought it was a good match. I thought their match in Wembley was better. I will say that, though. The match they had in August at Wembley Stadium was better than this. And it was a great moment for Toni. She's the champion again. She deserves it. She is... she's probably the best women's wrestler in the world right now. And she is incredibly over. And you hear the reactions that she gets from the fans every week. She deserves this. So, good on Toni Storm. And that was the end to what was I would say overall it was a really good show. Again, there was finishes in there that I didn't like. I didn't like the ending to the tag team match. I didn't like the ending to the Continental title match. You know, if you didn't like the ending to the main event, I totally understand that. I get your standpoint. I'm not going to complain because I got a feeling this ain't the end. If somehow they don't do a big time stipulation match at Revolution and that was the end of the feud, then yes, I will give my criticisms to that. But I don't think they're ending a feud that's been going on for over a year for with a small package. I just don't see it. I don't see it. So overall, this Grand Slam show was really good, and we'll talk about what's on tap for Dynamite towards the end of the podcast. So now we transition to NXT Vengeance Day. And this show took place in Washington, D.C. There was about 2,000 people there, and they made a lot of noise. I thought this was a very good crowd. So shout out to Washington, D.C. Yeah, overall, it was a decent show. The most of the matches were really good. So, but again, it's kind of like the Grand Slam show, um, where yes, the in-ring quality in the Grand Slam show was way better than the in-ring quality in this show, but this show had good matches. But just like the Grand Slam show, there were finishes where I really, you know, it's a head scratcher. It's like, why was this the finish of the match? So, the show started with the North American Championship match, the Women's North American Championship match between, um, I'm sorry, Stephanie Vaquer and Fallon Henley. Um, I thought they had a very good match to open up the show. I thought the match was very good. The crowd was definitely into Stephanie Vaquer. And the story of this match was Stephanie Vaquer was getting more of the attention than the champion herself is. And the champion, Fallon Henley, is definitely jealous of that because Stephanie is getting way more attention than she is. And she defended the championship 8 times and all that stuff. And the finish, the story was that jealousy and that the other two, JC Jane and Jasmine Nix, was always getting involved in the match. So, towards the end, Stephanie went on the top rope, did a crossbody dive onto all three on the outside, threw Fallon Henley back into the ring, set up like she was going to hit her with the package pile driver, but she lifted her up and hit her with a backbreaker instead. And then she did a top rope corkscrew onto Fallon Henley. And Stephanie Vaquer is the new North American champion. So, good for her. She is awesome. And, Fallon Henley could be heading her way up to the main roster. I think that Jasmine Nix could probably use some time in NXT, but Fallon and JC Jane, they're definitely ready for the main roster, and they've been ready. So, they could use them as a tag team in the tag team division, or they can use Fallon as a challenger for one of their mid-card titles because, my God, they need it. They need it. Those titles desperately need help. So maybe she comes up and she's a challenger for the United States Championship, or she's a challenger for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. So, but yeah, those titles need help desperately. So we had Josh Briggs and Inamura against Fraxium, Nathan Frazier, and Axiom for the tag team titles. This match was great. This was probably the best thing on the show. Fraxium, they just don't miss. And I'm not saying NXT booking is not good. It is by far the worst booked brand in the WWE. But if I'm booking this, I'm booking Fraxium's farewell in NXT the same way Asuka had her farewell in NXT, which is vacate the tag team championships and move on to the main roster. Because at this point, who the fuck is going to beat these guys? So, we'll start here. We'll go over this match. We had Inamura and Fraxium and Axiom in the ring. Inamura is doing palm strikes to the chest and then gives a chop to Axiom. Irish whips Axiom into their corner, and he gives him a chop again, and then he's doing punch chop combos onto Axiom multiple times, over and over again. Punch chop, punch chop, punch chop, and Josh Briggs is just sitting back and like, this is awesome. So he had a great facial expression on his face. Crowd's going crazy for it. Later on in the match, Briggs Irish whips Frazier into Axiom, but Frazier pauses himself as he doesn't try to bump into Axiom, and he's like, we got to be on the same page. And Briggs catches Axiom, gives him a backbreaker. Briggs then catches Frazier, gives him he tries to hit him with a choke slam. Frazier counters it, tries to hit a Hurricane Rana, but Briggs hits a powerbomb. I remember watching Briggs in person at the Stand and Deliver show last year when he faced Dijak and Obafemi in a triple threat match for the North American Championship. He really impressed me on that show. He was awesome in that triple threat match, and he could be a big deal in the years to come. He is, from what I've seen, and again, I'm not the biggest NXT fan. I don't watch NXT religiously, but from what I've seen, he's pretty good, dude. He could be a stud. So he hits a splash onto Axiom on the turnbuckle, a big boot, and then he lifts up Axiom with the back body drop, and Inamura hits him with a power bomb, and Nathan Frazier breaks up the pinfall. So we have this sequence here where Frazier gets a top rope dive onto Inamura, but Inamura catches him, gives him a scoop slam over his head, and Briggs tries to lift up Axiom, but Axiom moves, hits a poison Rana onto Briggs. Inamura gives Axiom a pounce, just like Willow Nightingale would, and he hits a tries to hit him with a turning power slam, but Frazier jumps onto Inamura's back, and Inamura, he's down to one knee, but he's hulking up, brother, and he starts to stand back up, and he spins and spins and spins, and he spins again. He slams Axiom, but he gets dizzy, but he lifts up Frazier and gives him a Death Valley driver onto Axiom. I thought that spot was awesome. And then they lay out, or Frazier, lays out Briggs with a dive, and Axiom lays out Inamura with a moonsault. They throw Inamura back in the ring because he's legal. They hit the high-low combination with drop kick and then high-low, and Fraxium retain the NXT Tag Team Championships in a great match. Great match. These guys don't miss. Okay? I personally believe they were the best tag team in the world last year, and they can't have a bad match. And Nathan Frazier is probably the best worker they have in NXT. He's probably the best bell-to-bell wrestler they have in NXT. So, that match was great. Probably the best match on the show, if you ask me. As a matter of fact, not probably. I would say that was the best match on the show. Great stuff. Then they show sportsmanship after the match, but then guys in black hoodies and masks come out and attack these four guys. I don't know, dude. I don't know. Let's just move on. We have Trick Williams and Eddie Thorpe in a strap match. And I actually thought this match was pretty good. Trick Williams is over. He is charismatic. He is good on the microphone. His weakest point is his wrestling is not great. He is not. I wouldn't say he's a good wrestler. I love Trick Williams, but his weakest point by far is his in-ring wrestling. So he's had great matches with like Braun Breaker, and he's had great matches with Ilya Dragunov, but he's in there with guys like Carmelo Hayes, and he had a good match. I mean, it wasn't great or anything, but at Stand and Deliver last year, he had a good match with Carmelo Hayes. His matches with Ethan Page weren't really that impressive to me. His match with Ridge Holland wasn't really that impressive to me. He's still very green in the ring. But for what this was, the finish sucked. Okay? We'll talk about that in a little bit. But for what this was, I actually thought this match was pretty good. So, the strap definitely helped, though. The strap being this being a strap match definitely made the match good. So, because they were whipping each other for most of this match. So Williams goes for the pump kick, and Thorpe ducks, and he gets stuck on the top rope, and Thorpe starts whipping him with the strap. He whipped him, and he threw him over the top rope, and he goes over the top rope himself, and he whipped him again. So most of this match, these guys were whipping each other with this strap. So Williams hits a he whipped him again, and he hits him with the Uranagi slam, and Thorpe kicked out, and Williams immediately goes into the STF with the strap wrapped around Thorpe's face. So I thought that was a good spot there. Thorpe looks like he's going to tap, but he gets to the bottom rope, and this is a no DQ match. So why is the referee counting? That was very stupid. So we'll get to the ending of this match. Thorpe was on the offense for a couple minutes, and then the beast inside Trick Williams finally woke up. That's what Vic Joseph said on commentary. Oh, the beast inside him. It's woken up. And Thorpe is pleading. So Trick Williams, he whipped him, and he whipped him, and he whipped him, and he whipped him, and he's whipping him over and over again. You see what I mean here? The strap being involved in this match made this match 5 times better than it would have been if it was a regular Trick Williams singles match. So then, hold Hold on, let me find the finish here. Trick, I think it was. Trick goes for the running knee. Thorpe ducks, runs to the opposite side, and uses the strap to his advantage with a low blow onto Trick Williams. And then I don't know what he was trying to do, but it was like a running knee, a Psycho knee. He hit him in his stomach, and Eddie Thorpe pinned Trick Williams. And this crowd lost their mind. They lost their mind. They were furious that Trick Williams lost this match to Eddie Thorpe. So this was far and beyond the worst, I would say, booking move that Shawn Michaels made yesterday. This was Jesus. The fall off of Trick Williams since he lost the NXT Championship the first time really needs to be talked about. And I remember when NXT was on fire last year, when it was Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes in the main event. And shortly after, Trick Williams wins the NXT Championship against Ilya Dragunov. And I feel like Ethan Page coming in really halted his reign as the champion, because they took all the momentum that Trick Williams had last year away from him, and they gave it to Ethan Page. And I remember last July they had Trick Williams as the NXT champion. They had a young star in Javon Evans, who we're going to talk about next. Trick Williams, who was the NXT champion. They had a young star in Javon Evans on the rise. And it was just downhill booking from then for Trick Williams. They had no challengers for him outside of Ethan Page. And then the second time around, Ethan Page again. He had a match with Ridge Holland and then Obafemi, which he ultimately lost to, in a triple threat with Eddie Thorpe. And now he's on here and he's putting over Eddie Thorpe on pay-per-view. So, is Trick going up to the main roster? I don't know, man. I would say this. I would say this. As far as promo work and charisma and his character, yes, Trick is 100% ready for the main roster. But his in-ring work, Trick Williams, the wrestler, is not ready for the main roster. He's not there yet. So what I thought that was going to happen was Trick was going to win this match against Eddie Thorpe, which should have been obvious. And the main event of Stand and Deliver on WrestleMania weekend was going to be Trick Williams and Obafemi for the NXT Championship. That's obviously not happening now. Maybe it is. I have no idea. I don't watch NXT every week. I don't know. But where does Trick go from here? He just lost to fucking Eddie Thorpe. who, from what I've seen, a charisma vacuum. So, I don't know, man. The match was good, but I certainly did not like that finish. Then we had Ethan Page and Javon Evans. I thought this match was really good. But again, the wrong result. Why did Ethan Page need to go over in this match? No idea. We'll just go ahead and we'll get to the ending of this match. Javon hits a crossbody over the top rope to Ethan Page. Crowd starts chanting Young OG, Young OG. And Javon, he goes to the top. He bounces off the second rope to go for the cutter, and Ethan Page just punches him in the face. His mouthpiece falls off. He hits the twist of fate, and Ethan Page beats Javon Evans. So maybe Javon gets his win back in New York or at Stand and Deliver. I don't know. But to be honest, catching up on this stuff before this show, this was the best story. This was the best feud going into Vengeance Day. It was very simple. Javon Evans had his jaw broken by Ethan Page months ago. I think it was in December. So, he had his jaw broken by Ethan Page in December. And the doctor just cleared him this week. So, the story is simple. Javon Evans was willing to risk it all against a man who had put him out for 2 months with a jaw injury, and he's willing to risk his career to get revenge on the guy that broke his jaw. At the end, he came up short. The feud's probably not over. He was bleeding from the mouth again. So, this match was really good. I thought they had a really good match. Grayson Waller and Austin Theory against Obafemi for the NXT Championship. This is how you know that the men's division in NXT, it's not good. Because they're calling up main roster talent. They're calling down main roster talent like Grayson Waller and Austin Theory to fight for the NXT Championship on their pay-per-view. And it was a great match. I did enjoy this match. I very much did enjoy it. Again, simple story. They had you thinking that Grayson Waller and Austin Theory would turn on each other for the sake of the NXT Championship. They did at points in the match, but they never really went after each other. So, the story was simple. The match was really good. And Obafemi, we'll just go ahead and we'll get to the ending here. So, Obafemi does the toss onto Grayson Waller through the announce table. And the crowd chants, "Holy shit." Theory brings a chair into the ring. Obafemi lets go of it. Theory hits a DDT onto Obafemi. Theory hits A-Town down onto Obafemi. And the referee counts 1, 2, and Grayson Waller pulls the referee out of the ring. So, technically, they never really put their hands on each other. But Grayson Waller just costed Austin Theory the NXT Championship. So, Theory's livid. His friend just costed him the championship. Obafemi tosses Theory onto the other side of the ring. He goes for the power bomb, but Uh, Waller does the rolling stunner, and instead of hitting Obafemi, he hits Theory. Obafemi hits the power bomb onto Waller, and Obafemi retained the NXT Championship in a really good match. So they had a really good match. The story was simple, and overall was fine. But this just goes to show you the state of the NXT men's division when they're calling up main roster. They're calling main roster talent to challenge for the NXT Championship. So we have NXT on Tuesday, and I'll talk about this before the main event. The newest superstar is signing the contract, and on Tuesday, Ricky Starks showed up on NXT. So Ricky Starks, a day after getting released, showed up on NXT, and it was awesome. It was awesome. But he did not mention his name once. Commentary did not mention his name. When Triple H put out a tweet about this segment, he did not mention his name. Ricky Starks had a little bit of a promo in the parking lot, and he did not mention his name. All he said was, Tuesday, I will sign the NXT contract, and I will put pen to paper on Tuesday. So, he did not mention his name again. So Tuesday, we will find out if Ricky Starks is actually Ricky Starks. And for his sake and for AEW's sake, this was the best thing to happen. Because it seemed like it was inevitable that Ricky Starks was going to go to WWE, and he is going to be very successful in the WWE because he has Cody Rhodes putting in a word for him. He has CM Punk putting in a word for him. He's going to thrive in WWE because he's got the support there. And do I feel like that Tony Khan should have used Ricky Starks more? You're damn right I do. And even if he knows that he doesn't want to be there, he's like, well, I'm paying you to be here. I'm going to use you until your contract runs out. And you're going to come to work. You're going to wrestle. You're going to cut promos. And you're going to put over the talent that actually want to be here. So, I would have used Ricky Starks more in AEW than Tony Khan did. But it was clear as day. Ricky did not want to be there. And Ricky was at WWE shows. He was obviously in the box at WrestleMania to watch Cody win. And he clearly did not want to be with AEW, as there were reports that he was backstage at WWE shows and he was getting calls from AEW for creative pitches, but he didn't answer the call, so it was just a whole mess. And this is the best thing moving forward for both Ricky Starks and AEW. We don't have to hear about how much AEW didn't use Ricky Starks. We don't have to hear about how much how they missed the boat on Ricky Starks, which, I mean, they did. But now we move on. Ricky Starks is going to be starting in NXT. And it was because WWE had most of their plans in for WrestleMania where there was going to be no room for him. So it was best to start him in NXT. So that got the wrestling world talking on Tuesday night. And he's going to sign his NXT contract on Tuesday on NXT. We had the main event, the Fatal 4-Way for the NXT Women's Championship, where Julia defeated Roxanne, Cora Jade, and Bayley. I actually thought this was a fun main event. There was some very creative spots in this match, and Julia pinned Roxanne Perez. So Roxanne's clearly going to the main roster as soon as Monday because she's in a qualifying match for the Elimination Chamber. So Roxanne Perez is main roster bound. Trick Williams could be main roster bound. And also, I feel like Fallon Henley and JC Jane, they could be main roster bound as well. So, the ending of this show set a statement. Quite a statement. Stephanie Vacure came out, raised her North American Championship. Julia raised her NXT Championship. And Jordynne Grace came out. Crowd gave her a huge pop. She started off with Julia. She started off with Stephanie Vacure. And that's clearly going to be one of the matches at Stand and Deliver, WrestleMania weekend. Either Jordynne Grace against Julia or Jordynne Grace against Stephanie Vacure. That's clearly going to be one of the matches. So, they went off the show with a statement that, hey, we have the best we have the best women's division in the world, and we know it. And it's back-to-back show pay-per-views now where the women have main evented, and they're showcasing it every week that, hey, we have the best women's division in the world. So, there you go. That's your Vengeance Day review. It was a solid show. I would say overall it was a solid show. Before we get out of here, we'll run down lineups for this coming week. We got Raw on Monday. Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins in the last men's qualifying match for the Elimination Chamber. Roxanne Perez versus Raquel Rodriguez in the last qualifying match for the Women's Elimination Chamber. We have Dominic Mysterio versus AJ Styles. Penta versus Pete Dunne. Bianca Belair and Naomi will appear on the show. And we have a number one contenders match for the Women's Intercontinental Championship between Dakota Kai and Ivy Nile. So, that is Raw tomorrow night from Charlotte. Then we have Dynamite on Wednesday from Phoenix, Arizona. MJF and Adam Page will go face-to-face. Powerhouse Hobbs versus Big Bill in a street fight. Personally, I think that match should be saved for the pay-per-view, but whatever. We have the Ops, Samoa Joe, Hook, and Shibata against the Patriarchy. That's Christian Cage, Nick Wayne, and Kip Sabian. We have a international title series kicking off Wednesday, and it's going to be Orange Cassidy back on AEW TV against Roderick Strong. And then we have SmackDown on Friday from New Orleans, where it will be Pretty Deadly against DIY for the tag team titles, and Jimmy Uso against Drew McIntyre. So my voice is my voice is shot. I'm gonna get out of here. Enjoy the rest of my Sunday, and I will see you guys tomorrow night for Monday Night Raw. Subscribe to the channel. Comment down below what you thought of both shows. Hit the like button if you like what you heard from me. Follow me on Twitter at Colin_Joseph. And I will see you guys tomorrow night for the Monday Night Raw review podcast here on the Big Fight Fuel channel. Have a good night. Stay safe. And as always, stay classy and love wrestling.